A very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows, with whom I've been spending rather a lot of time this week because it is Winex week. And that means if you walk through the streets of Stellenbosch, of Robertson, of Franschhoek, of Paarl, of Constantia, they're just dusty and empty. There is nobody there because every single winemaker is in one of two places. They're either at the Rugby World Cup final or they are up for Winex. And what Michael Friedjon has done with Standerbeck Winex, and I'll talk about it more in just a moment, has been fantastic. Great evening last night. We did the live show from there, as you may have seen, and there's just such a wonderful energy about Johannesburg and the wine industry this week. It is fantastic to be a part of it. And what it means with all of the winemakers being up, being part of Winex, celebrating the strength and wonder of South African wine, is there are loads of events around it. Already this week, we've had a number, but this one, the one at which we are coming to you from today, is particularly special because this is the Fair Lawns Hotel. And if I go back a few months now, I had a conversation with Johann De Wet, who'd come up from Robertson to take us through some of the, I think at that stage it was 81 Chardonnays he'd just released, and we got to try a whole pile of them. And he took me aside and rather conspiration, he whispered into my ear that he had a pretty cool project coming up that he'd like to do something with it later on in the year. Well, that project is Calcrete. No, it's not a brand new and exciting building material. It's actually one of the most exciting wine collaborations I've seen in South Africa in some time. And in just a moment, I had three very cool members of the Robertson wine community to talk to me about Calcrete. What is it? How did it come about? And why is this such a great collaboration from Robertson? So that's coming up on today's show, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows in the heart of Winex. Before I speak to three suspiciously athletic and good-looking young men from Robertson, let's have a quick look at some wine news. Well, I mentioned it is Standerbeck Winex week. We were there last night, 900 or so wines, about 180 different producers. And we made this point on the show, live show last night. What's really changed about Winex, it's not this big wine-fueled beer fest where everybody comes and drinks as much as they can and asks really in-depth questions like, do you have a red wine? The amount of knowledge and understanding has clearly grown. People are coming up and asking, do you have a skin contact white I can try? Have you got some old bush fine Cinsault or Shannon? People are really understanding their wine and the strength of the Johannesburg market as a leader for the sales of South African wine, I think has never been more important. And yes, it's lovely to see wine going into foreign markets and international markets, but to watch last night, to see the winelands come up to Johannesburg, to see so many people there to celebrate was really uplifting. And if you'd like to go, well, once you finish watching this show, you can nip down, catch the end of Thursday night or this Friday night, which is always a little raucous. Look out for winemakers dancing on tables and wine being happily drunk. But any of the three nights, just a great way to enjoy South African wine. Now, I mentioned there were winemakers up all week. Amongst them, Dirk van Zyl was up from Glenelly, and we had a lovely lunch at Marble on Monday, the chance to try wine going back to 2008, which is the very first Lady May, the iconic Lady May, named after the French visionary who in her 70s decided to say goodbye to Bordeaux and come and play in Stellenbosch instead. And the wine that Dirk is producing, not just his reds, for which he's particularly well known, but also the Chardonnay. We had some slightly older Chardonnay, aged delightfully, telling that Stellenbosch Chardonnay story really well. See how it compares to the Robertson Chardonnay today. And then speaking of Chardonnay, has there been a more cult status wine over the last couple of years? And the Sea Salter out of Rietvallei has found a really, really welcome audience, name immediately pushing people in their heads to expect something with salinity and minerality. And that's exactly what it's got, those breezes coming in off the west coast. And now there is, I suppose this is probably a big brother, maybe a big sister. This is the Chardonnay. It's a pinch of salt. Michael Friedjon, who I drank it with, saying it's exactly the kind of wine you'd expect to be the Chardonnay to sit alongside the Sea Salter, which is a 90% Sauvignon Blanc, 10% Semillon. Again, it's got that salinity. Again, it's got that little mineral punch, and it's got a texture to the wine. There's a bit of wood. I think Lucas, the winemaker, described it as being an unwooded Chardonnay, which so I was a little confused. But if you drink it, you'll get what he's thinking about. Try it out. It's another lovely addition from the Rietvallei team, and one that I think is going to sell rather well. And then finally on this week's Misadventures, quick chance to catch up with Frans K. Smit. They're a very innovative bunch down at Spear, and Frans leads that charge. And their real focus over the better part of the last decade has been trying to make the Spear establishment a lot more focused on producing wine that's environmentally friendly, that's being made in the right way without compromising at all on the quality or the impact of the wine. And I think they've done that really well. I got to try a number of wines from the new range. And what, again, came through as it has done so many times this week, the quality of wine at such good value. And I hate using that word value because it suggests there's a cheapness to wine. We need to throw that out the window, but gee, you're not paying a lot for some really good wine. So Spear under Frans, some new releases that are continuing to do proud, a great legacy of both himself and Spear. All right, well, let's move away from the events that have already taken place to one that's happening now. And we've got a whole pile of local media who are coming in with great excitement because an event with the godfather of Chardonnay, being the De Wetshof team, is always welcome. When the godfather's brought a whole pile of his mates from Robertson along with him, even more so. Guys, lovely to have you back in Johannesburg. Johann De Wet, welcome for what's a really, really cool celebration. I know you guys are pretty close as a valley. It's a lovely valley to come and visit whenever I do. The welcome is fantastic. But you guys are all really close. You've now taken it to the next level. And Johann, I remember you telling me when you were up here last time, you had this project, you had the Calcrete, you were going to produce something special, and voila, here we are.
Yeah.
Let's go back to how this came about and what the vision here is.
So it was a vision that's been coming for a long time. And the idea was Robertson does unoaked Chardonnay. It's something special. You know, it is, you can go back on, you can look not only at accolades or international acclaim. It's, you know, it's something that we know has just been, it just gels in the area. So a group of producers came together and we said, how can we capture this? How can we capture it and make it sellable, you know, into the market or marketable? And we came up with a Calcrete initiative, and Philip from Weltevrede was a massive drive behind it. And and here we are today, you know, and it's, so we're trying to capture the essence of the area, the soil, the fingerprint of wines from Robertson, and unoaked Chardonnay, that chalky, salty, minerally characters that we get in Robertson, citrus characters that we get in Robertson. And it's something which we can do as a valley quite easily, and we can do quite nice volumes of it as well. So I think it's a great project for the area.
If I look at things that I think fit in a similar space, Durbanville have now done a couple of vintages of the Sauvignon Blanc where they've all come together. Wade Bales does something with Constantia, particularly with the Sauvignon Semillon blend. There it's a case of everybody brings some of their best wine. They alternate as to who actually makes it, and that is how the wine comes together. What is the process in terms of making the Calcrete?
So with us, it's the whole process is, it's about the area's site, the soil of the area, the fingerprint of the area. But each farm still has its own individuality. And it's not us bringing a lot of different parcels and putting it in one. It is, I have my identity. Weltevrede has his identity, so does Van Roofen, so does Rietvallei, so does Excelsior. Each one has a very strong identity and fingerprint, but it's all within the framework of Calcrete. And I think that's the most important factor here, is that these wines get audited in the winemaking process. It gets it goes through a judging panel to be awarded, you know, that we can sell it as Calcrete. So you sit with winemakers, the team, judging each other's wines and saying, is this actually, is it the fingerprint of what we want to be sending out there? And I think that's the beauty of this project, is you have individual wines, individual fingerprints, but with, you know, it's audited by the whole winemaking family of Robertson.
And that takes a bit of honesty. If you're going to sit down with all of your peers and here's your best mate from 20 years of wine together, and you've got to tell them, you know what, this wine's not great, you've got to pick it up.
And it happens. And but that's the beauty of it. We keep each other accountable. And I know when I'm moving out of the style. And, you know, sometimes because you don't have another wine or this way or that way, but then your friends or the peers will come and say, this is not Calcrete. It's not the fingerprint of what we want Calcrete to be. And that is, I think, magic of this style of wine. So you as a consumer can pick up any one of these 5 wines, and you know what you're getting. You know the honesty behind the wine that you're picking up. And I think that's beautiful.
So we've got 6 wines then that are not identical. They all speak to Robertson, but they've all got their idiosyncrasies. Chris, as a winemaker, describe to people and now thinking, okay, well, what does that mean? For you as a winemaker, what says to you immediately Robertson Chardonnay? What says to you this is Calcrete?
I think for us at Van Loveren, and I mean, we have a big team of viticulturists, winemakers, and farm managers, and we went out and we looked in our Van Loveren packet. We have more than 500 hectares of Chardonnay grapes, and we went out there and we picked the best site. It was actually close to our CEO Philip Retief's house, so he keeps a good eye on the vineyard, and we picked that vineyard because of the rocky limestone soils, and that soils give you that minerality in the wines, also that saltiness that really speaks to Calcrete, because you're looking for that salinity, that salty smell of the ocean. You want that fresh citrus, that white fruit flavors. So that is what you're looking for in the wines, and that is what we feel we are getting in that specific vineyard. And yes, we're very happy with it.
Now, you know that from Robertson as a winemaker, you can produce great Chardonnay. That comes as de facto. It's expected of you. But now you've got to do it in the style of whether all of your peers are going to say, oh, yeah, okay, you've got that right. Was there a little bit of pressure in putting this together?
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, because normally our Van Loveren styles, I mean, most of the styles are more the fuller, riper styles. So for me as a winemaker, we had to tone back. We had to harvest a bit earlier, because normally we want the fuller wines, high alcohol wines. But I think this style is more consumer friendly. I think a lot of people that are looking for terroir-specific wines will go for this because of the lower alcohol, the freshness, the acidity is the one you can enjoy with food. So I think it will really do well with the consumers and the people out there.
The Van Loveren brand has been incredibly successful at producing large volumes of wine at prices that are generally pretty accessible, and you get a lot more for your buck when you buy the wine. But this takes it into a new space. How exciting is it for you as a winemaker to be able to take on this project that maybe shifts you out of your comfort zone a little, but also asks a few more questions of you?
Yeah, I think because the Van Loveren brand, we're always trying to boost the brand. I think this Calcrete project is just putting us out there, and we are now forced to produce these really good quality wines. And although it's a unique wine, there's a special character. It's more unique for maybe a specific consumer, but it still fits into the large Van Loveren brand as a whole. Although it's more than 100 rand a bottle, and the rest of the Van Loveren wines in the range is 80 rand a bottle, but we're looking forward to the challenge.
I think there are a lot of people excited to drink these now, and a lot of excitement, I'm sure, in Robertson Steyn at being able to bring this new project to the wine market, because as much as Robertson is seen as Chardonnay territory, you've now got a really cool platform to showcase not just the best of Robertson, but also all of your winemakers coming together.
Yeah, definitely, Dan. I think there's always been a collaborative spirit in Robertson, and now we can own that in onto Chardonnay. And I have to be honest, I've been in the industry for 14 years. If I go and stand in front of a wine shelf, I get confused. So for me to have this project where we can tell the consumer, this is exactly what you're going to get, I think we owe it actually to consumers to do that as regions, to get our identity and really hit that identity. And it's an amazing project. It's very exciting. And just a note on when we taste and we come together, the first tasting is blind, completely blind. So you can see there's a bit of shifting on the chairs, a bit of pressure with that first tasting.
There's a great deal of history of Chardonnay in Robertson. There's a great deal of history of Chardonnay in South Africa, stemming out of the misadventures of the grape first getting to South Africa. And Chardonnay went through a nice growth. And then we did hit a period where there was lots of wood used. It was over-oaked, it was over-extracted, it was American, it was Australian, it wasn't great. This style of Chardonnay, which takes wood out of the equation entirely, is, I think, a big step forward in maybe bringing some of those people back into Chardonnay, or for those who do, giving them a new dimension to their Chardonnay experience.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Internationally, Chardonnay is the biggest selling white wine, not so in South Africa. So we need to bring people back to Chardonnay, even if that ends up on a wine list not being under the Chardonnay category, but under Calcrete, to let the name Calcrete become a known name for the consumer, so that they know that's that fresh style they're looking for. And absolutely, I still now with wine dinners and stuff, you get people that say, I don't drink Chardonnay. And then you say, okay, that's fine. You pour them unwooded Chardonnay, and then afterwards, oh, this is lovely. What's this? So this is also a product that we can use for that, like you said, to get people back on board on Chardonnay.
And then just from a marketing perspective, a word on the labeling. It's I don't think I've seen this done before, where you've got the same font for the Calcrete, so exactly what it is, but it sits within the brand identity of each of the respective estates. It's a fun idea. What's the marketing thinking behind that?
Yeah, so obviously to be a collaboration, you need a golden thread. And the golden thread labeling-wise is the Calcrete in the same font, but we wanted the individualism of each estate to be shown. So that's why we went for it. We don't say it should be this big or that big or whatever, but it should be in that same font. And I think it's just a strong statement to see producer products next to each other with the same name. We've had a couple of people, when you show the two bottles, they're like, okay, but how does that work? Because we're not used to that. And we should actually work together a lot more in building brand South Africa into the international market as well. So I think it's just, it's positive.
I'm glad you mentioned collaboration, because I was going to ask you about that, Johann, in the bringing together of this project. People who don't know the wine industry so well are often a little surprised at how well wine farmers, winemakers, wine estates get on with each other, because there's, well, hang on, you're competing with each other. Surely you can't be friends. You're both trying to sell the same sort of bottle. But I think this makes the point very clearly that when you do come together, when you do have this sense of collaboration, your opportunity to amplify the wine community in which you're in is so strong.
Sure, it's a collective marketing. And the beauty of Robertson is you sit with old families. So most of these farms are multi-generational. So it's fathers that were friends, it was grandfathers that are friends, and they learn of each other. And I think that's the beauty of Robertson. It's you still got this old family heritage, and we can actually work together. And I think as an area, that makes us very strong and very dynamic, because you've got these families working together at one goal, and here is the goal.
What about the drive to give our regions more of a sense of identity? There's one stage where you couldn't find a wine estate that wasn't making every single varietal known to man. People might want a rosé. Let's make a rosé, even if it's not something we naturally do. Now a lot of places are going, right, what do we focus on? What's really driving us? Is this part of a collective vision of Robertson to really drive home the fact that if you want world-class Chardonnay, Robertson is a prime destination?
I think Robertson's already been moving into that direction over many years. Obviously, the industry is young, so you do start with planting different varieties, seeing what works, what does the market want. But I think Robertson's definitely in the last 20, 30 years been honing more and more. And today, Robertson's the biggest Chardonnay producing area of South Africa. That's got to say something. I mean, why is everybody planting Chardonnay? Because it works. So I think that's, and this is a style of wine that Robertson can do easily. And I think that's the beauty of this, is you can have these individual wines, but it's a very unique and individual style running through.
I want to talk about that style. I'm going to put the winemaker under the spotlight here. I'm not going to ask Johann about his own wine. I want to run through these five just very quickly. Robertson producing so much Chardonnay, it means there is a lot grown. And although we have this general idea, there's lots of limestone soil, the terroir we've got a broad idea of, and there are differences to every single one of the estates represented. So just very quickly, if you will, Chris, starting with your own, and then I'm going to run through the other four, just if you don't mind, through those five, giving us, from your perspective, what makes them just ever so slightly different, what makes them exhibit the very best of where they come from.
The Loveren one, I would say we really focus on obviously on the soil and to give that minerality in the wine, and then also the citrus, get the citrus. The next one was the
De Wet stuff.
I think
you don't have to be nice just because he's here.
It's
a long day.
That's also been, all of these wines are in the style. I mean, all of them have that minerality, that salinity, because we want that freshness. You want the acidity on the palate. I think of all of these wines, the Loveren, maybe the acid is the lowest, and then the Wetshof one is a bit higher, so that freshness is definitely on the palate. The Excelsior is also a very good example. Also, you get that white fruit, citrus, the lime flavors are very prominent on the Excelsior one, and then also the salinity on the palate, that also that ocean breeze, that kind of that saltiness that you get. The Rietvallei, also again you get the salinity that freshness, that crisp acidity. And then the Weltevrede one, the original Calcrete, or also you get that minerality that goes through the wine, get that fresh citrus, lime flavor. So all of them are really very similar. Some of them obviously it's really a little bit more fuller, but all of them good examples of the Calcrete, and we're all very, very happy with the quality of these wines.
As winemakers, you almost have wood as a safety net with some wines, and that it can help you to iron out a few imperfections. You don't have that with an unoaked wood, so it's just the fruit and its components that are telling the story. Does that make it more challenging as a winemaker?
Yeah, especially for this year. This was the first year that we made the Calcrete, so we only had like 1 or 2 tanks that we experimented with. So after the first bottling, I think the wine that started very, very quickly. So with the second bottling, I didn't have a lot of options available. So in the panel, the first one I was put down and said, no, it's not the Calcrete style. So the next tasting, it went through. So it is difficult at the beginning, but I think over the next couple of years, we're gonna make a couple of more extra tanks, and you can have more options and many components available for you to make the wines. So yes, in the future there's going to be a lot of more components to play with.
Steyn, speaking of the options that you have, you've got 5 to choose from. They've all got slightly different nuances, as Chris has suggested. They're also slightly different prices. That, I'm guessing, is both the estates themselves and where they might slot into, and also kind of where the brands exist as they are. Give us an idea of the pricing strategy and how that came about.
So the price, we don't want to be caught in a price category that is the deals on the supermarket shelf, and you don't want to be caught there. So we said to each other, let's aim for above 100 rand on shelf. We're all in between 100 and 140, and it depends on your range, because your Calcrete needs to fit into your range at the price point where it's not competing with one of your other products. So that's the thinking behind it. We don't want it to be too expensive. We also don't want it to be a commercial in terms of a light style of Chardonnay. It's a decent, strong Chardonnay, and we also make it to be able to age for a number of years. So that's the vision, that's the plan. And without fixing the price at a certain level, we'll always sort of say let's aim for this kind of category.
Right, it's a very, very, very accessible price category still. And I'm going to ask you something about price in a moment, Johann, but I do want to stay and ask you about the name, the Calcrete. Who's responsible? I think I can have a reasonably good guess as to where the name came from, but I'll let you confirm it for me.
Yeah, sure. So it's Philip Jonker that decided on the name, and we actually started to collaborate quite early in the process already of what the name will be with the Wetshof. The Wetshof was the second Calcrete on the market. And Calcrete, the name Calcrete means geological deposit of limestone. We've got, the best proof of limestone in Robertson is if you drive straight into Robertson on your left-hand side, you get the limestone factory with all the limestone heaps lying there. It's in the mountains, breaks down over time, comes and lies in the valley, and that's Calcrete.
Well, it's a perfect name for the wine, and as you drink it, I think if you know that, it'll really come through in what's washing across your palate. Pricing is such a big part of the conversation we're having wine at the moment, Johann. And as wine producers, ideally you want to make as much money from your wine as you can to pay your workers a good wage, and to look after farmers who you might be bringing grapes in from, if that is the case, if that's your kind of production. On the other hand, you've got people who are trying to get the best value they possibly can for wine. Again, chatting to Michael Fridjon over lunch a couple of days ago, we were drinking some wine from Spear. The wine was exceptional. It was sitting between 130 and 150 rand, and felt like you're drinking wine that you should be paying 250 to 300 rand for. This balance we need to strike between, you want people to still be able to afford the wine, to drink it and to enjoy it, especially during quite challenging economic times. But at the same time, it's never been more expensive to produce wine. And if you are trying to make sure that the people who work for you have a decent living, that the people you may be buying grapes in from, those farmers are being looked after, not pulling out their old vines and replacing them with something else. How if it is indeed possible, how do we strike a balance there?
That's a deep question. I think South Africa as a category in the world environment is the best value.
But isn't that not a bad statement to be making, given that that's now the perception of so many people?
It is, and it's not what you want to be. You don't want to be cheap and cheerful.
Yeah.
And I think South Africa is definitely moving away from the cheap and cheerful way that we are seen. But I'm talking about quality value. So what you pay for, what you get, quality in a bottle. South Africa outperforms everybody else in the world.
Massively.
And I think that's the beauty of or one of the strengths of South Africa. And yes, I mean, here you sit with wines, it's over 100, under 150. I think it's, great value for the wines that you get.
It's terrific value.
I mean, I mean, we all try to make a little bit of money because we need to, as you said, there's wages that needs to be paid, there's a business that needs to be run. But from a quality point of view, this is as the best value you're going to get.
And I do not doubt that for a second. And as a buyer, I'm very happy that these are the prices. But I'd love them to be higher for people like you. Staying from a marketing perspective, how do you persuade people that actually the right thing to do is to be paying more for the wine that you're drinking?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. I mean, I think we're all feeling the economic pinch. So it's difficult to tell people that you need to pay more when there is actually alternatives on the shelf of equal value. So that's really where it comes into supply and demand. It is, I mean, for the producers to be sustainable. I mean, we talk about sustainability in the field, in the vineyard, and in nature. But I mean, economically, we also need to be sustainable. So it is something that we need to drive from the production side to make sure that we get good prices and stay profitable to still be here in 100 years' time.
It's a big question. Look out for a show coming up in the next few weeks. We'll be talking to, amongst others, Tim Hutchinson, who's just bought 100 hectares in the Helderberg, trying very hard to preserve some of the vines there. These are challenges to be had. The challenge here is going to be continuing with this great story and even improving it, because you mentioned that there is more to come. How do you take this forward? What's the next step in terms of the Calcrete?
I think for the region, we want as much as possible for the producers to be a part of it. So I know Bon Courage, there's a couple of other sellers that are also interested in joining the Calcrete group. So yes, we're looking to get as much as from the Robertson producers to join us, and from there just grow the volumes and hopefully the consumers, especially I think consumers that are looking for terroir specific wines, they will go for this something unique. Consumers that want chardonnay with different expressions, they will go for this type of style. And yes, we hope that they will like the wines.
Now, one thing winemakers are not very good at doing is deciding when to draw a line in the sand. And right, we're only going to do this. I think of Duncan Savage looking me in the eye and promising me he was only ever going to make 2 wines. And he's at about 8 or 9 at the moment. Is there a vision to have perhaps a Cup Classique in a similar style, or to have a supplementary product or 2 that mirrors this kind of approach?
Well, I don't know if you better answer that, but I know we have the Lamson Lumineers is also part of a project in Robertson. So yeah, I think that will link with the Calcrete as well. So yeah, I think that project is also running. So yeah, so hopefully both of those 2 projects together, they will put more interest into the Robertson region and put more focus on Chardonnay.
Anything on the horizon, Johann?
No, I think he summed it up quite nicely. You've got bubbly, Lamson Lumineers, and Blanc de Blanc, so Chardonnay-driven bubbly, is by far the superstar in that category, which again fits in quite nicely with Calcrete. So I think exciting times for Robertson.
What would your dad have made of this, given that he was one of the original miscreants who smuggled the Chardonnay into South Africa and allowed us to just begin the grape going, to now have this kind of project? It's come a long way, Chardonnay.
I mean, just from his side, he's super excited about it. I mean, even he said it's the best, initiative coming out of that he's seen out of South Africa in his time. So he's very excited about this as well. And so, but we all are. I mean, I think the whole of Robertson is, and the more drive we put behind it, the more Robertson producers are going to become excited about it, and the bigger this category will become. And that's the beauty of this category. It can grow. The volume can grow, the producers can grow. I think that's really the big X factor of this. We're not bound with a single label or anything. It's a value, but it's a fingerprint of a value. That's beautiful.
And by extension, is this the range of wine that gives unoaked Chardonnay a real jump start and gets a lot more people understanding not just how well it is made, but how much fun it is to drink.
For sure. I mean, wine must have drinkability. What's the point? Otherwise, there's no point in me making these wine and my peers making their wines. We make wine to be consumed, and that is what we try to achieve, I think.
I've got a final question around this, Calcrete, I want to ask you, but as I have the three of you here, it makes sense to broaden just a little. There's been a lot of excitement with Van Loveren over the last few years, some acquisitions and some new wines you've brought out. I don't need to ask you if there's anything new on the horizon, because I know there will be, but what have we got to look forward to with Van Loveren?
I think for now, within the Van Loveren brands, we're very much excited about this Calcrete project, and we're hoping that it will boost our brand. The marketing people are always looking for something new to push the Van Loveren and to bring it to the consumers that we are out there to produce quality wines, to be innovative. So yes, for the future, definitely we're looking forward to the Calcrete, and the marketing people are very excited about this new project. So yes.
And I must also ask, just given the sheer scale of the Van Loveren operation, it looks quite daunting from the outside to be part of it, because there is a lot that you do. How do all the pieces come together? How do the mechanics work? And what's it like being part of an organization of this scale?
No, it's a big company, but we are a big team of winemakers, viticulturists, marketing people, and farm managers, and it's not just only one person that is making the decisions. It's a team effort. So there's more than 1,000 hectares of vineyards, and we have lots of different brands. But in sort of a way, we're getting there, and we're making sure that in every bottle of wine we put in quality. So quality is the big point that we want to bring out there.
I must tell you, I'm reminded, and you mustn't let him know that I told you this, but Ronaldo, my director, his first ever visit to a wine estate was to Van Loveren. We came down to try the non-alcoholic, the de-alcoholized range, and one of the brothers was speaking about the I think it was Philip was talking about the wine, and there was some apricots to it and some citrus, and dear Ronaldo afterwards, his very first wine experience, at what point do they add the apricots and the citrus to the wines? And I make that point simply because having these kind of engagements is so important, because there are so many people for whom wine is so alien, and I love the fact Ronaldo now knows actually more about wine than I do, because he's a rather bright gentleman, but we're able to educate and to teach people about wine, and to introduce them to regions like Robertson, which takes me saying to the Robertson Horizon. It's an area that I love visiting. The welcome is always incredibly warm. What is the community, where do you feel you are at the moment as wine producers, as a wine tourism centre, and are there particular things we have to look forward to over the next little while?
Then I think we became known as a kind of a festival region. That's what pulled people to the area, and that kind of had its course, and I think it did a great thing to introduce people to Robertson. But I think we're at a place now where like-minded producers are working together in initiatives like this. Johann mentioned the Limestone Lumineers, and that is really, if you're like-minded and you're driving a certain category, that's very exciting. And in terms of tourism, there's more and more things happening as well. Nice restaurants opening up. Restaurants are always a difficult thing in the valley, but there's more and more really high quality good restaurants opening up. There's a lot of accommodation. So, and I think we might look forward to something similar to Wine on the River in the future as well. So lifestyle festivals and drawing people in, but not necessarily the huge crowds, just a little bit more focused.
Well, keep us posted. We'd love to come along and be part of it. What about Team De Wetshof? Again, I know, you haven't released a new Chardonnay other than this one in weeks now. So I know there's always stuff planned, and there's a real sense of adventure to what you guys do. What's up your sleeve at the moment, Johann?
At the moment, just focusing on what I have.
Yeah.
I think, we do, 7 different styles of Chardonnay, from Blanc to Blanc all the way to the oak. So, and I think, for me, and this is where it happens, it's every site is a fingerprint, every site has a personality, and you try to capture that and bring it to a bottle. So I'm not going to promise that I'm going to stop at my 7, but at the moment I'm kind of set.
All right, well, let me bring you back to one of them, and it is the other question I wanted to ask you guys about the wine. I'm dropping around to the De Wets for dinner. It's a bottle of Calcrete being served. What am I eating with your particular Calcrete, John?
If you look at what we have in this wine, you've got citrus notes, you've got chalky minerality, a bit of saltiness. So, and it's Chardonnay, which means you can pair it with almost anything on it, and it works, you know. But shellfish, oysters will do magic with this wine. People think, oh, bubbly and oysters. This is going to be more exciting than a bubbly and oyster in my book. But then you can move up into richer foods, you know, and it will still complement, the wine will still complement the food. And that's the beauty of Chardonnay, is it's so diverse in the way it complements food.
I remember chatting to Kevin Grant at Ataraxia about Chardonnay, and he gave me a line which I'd never forgotten, which is that acid is the central nervous system of Chardonnay, and it is that acid where I've had Chardonnay with a well-marbled ribeye, and it just cuts through and brings it out. It's a wonderfully diverse grape. The Van Loveren Chardonnay, Chris, if I'm coming around to you, probably for breakfast, because it's a good breakfast one. If I'm coming around for a meal for you, what would you be serving me?
Yeah, something fresh, like Johann said, fresh seafood, anything, a salad, creamy dishes, means Chardonnay always goes well with creamy risottos, creamy dishes. So yeah, fresh seafood, you can't go wrong with that.
And Steyn, maybe pick one or two of the remaining three. Is there a one or two that you think would scream out for one of your signature dishes when you're in the kitchen?
If I have to pick one and try to be a little bit different within the spectrum, I would say Rietvallei. And you can go a little bit more meaty, maybe a smoked chicken, even go towards beef. Yeah, but the problem with this is that we all say the same thing basically, and that's also the beauty of it,
because it is a similar style.
So I will go with on your own with or on its own with good friends. Leave the food for later.
I think it's a great way to understand. And what we're hoping to do, and we're working on this at the moment, is to be able to bring these six together. And I'm hoping we'll get them into the Dan Really Likes Wine store with Norman Goodfellows and allow you to buy the full case and try one of each of them and compare the little differences, the little nuances. All of this, though, takes second place at the moment to the one issue that has all four of us, like most South Africans, suffering near cardiac arrest over the last 2 weeks. There's a rather big rugby match over the weekend, and I've got next to me somebody who could be arranging loose forward, someone who's got the build of a tough inside centre, and possibly Stephen Kitsoff's scrum half son. So based on those three, for this Saturday, I need some advice, guys. Big game of rugby. I'm convinced if I drink the right wine, it'll help the Springboks win. Chris, what will you be drinking? What should I be drinking to watch the World Cup final on Saturday?
Sure. I will definitely be drinking a bottle of Calcrete. I hope you will too. Yeah, I hope the Boks don't disappoint us. I hope they win the Eastern team of 5 points. So yes, it's very nervous. Hopefully it's not going to be by 1 point, but yeah, very nervous. Yeah, hope it goes all right.
Watching from behind the couch, eyes half closed. Steyn, what's your recommendation?
I'm going to go for the French paradox and say red wine is good for your heart, and maybe get one of the red wines from one of my neighbors.
All right, that sounds like a definite idea. Johann?
We're going to win by a long yard. It's going to be like 2012 or something, you know? No, I think we're going to do it. We're going to be hitting it. And yeah, I mean, Calcrete will do well. You can always have a brandy and coke too. if the nerves, you know, really get unsettled. But no, I think a good bottle of Chardonnay, you'll never go.
All right, I might put all three of those together, and that should take care of the first half, and then I'll see how the second half goes. I'd love it to be 8 points. That's an absolute chasm based on what the last two games have been. Guys, thank you. Please pass on my admiration to your co-conspirators in putting this together. One of the things I genuinely love about South African wine is how closely knit our wine communities are, how you work together. Somebody's tractor's broken, the guy next door comes around to help you fix it. You're short a barrel or two, somebody helps out. And that kind of friendship and camaraderie really reflects the strength that we've got as a wine country. And just as the rugby's doing us proud, so our South African wine does us proud. And I think this is another wonderful example. And it's also a reminder that I'm long overdue getting down to Robertson. So expect me soon, particularly if you've got some events coming back up. I'm going to be trying this wine over the weekend. Do look out for it yourselves. It's just such a cool project. And it's a reflection of terroir in individual hands that gives you a complete picture of why Chardonnay and Robertson are matched so perfectly. Guys, good luck getting through the rugby on Saturday. But more importantly, good luck with this project. I don't think you need the luck because it's both really exciting and really well made. And thank you for sharing what's a really, really cool chapter of the Robertson wine story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there we go. That is us for this evening. It's coming up for 6 o'clock. So if you shoot out, you can just get to the end of Standard Bank Wine X today. You might even see one or two of these guys wandering around. Or if not tonight, then tomorrow, Friday, Michael Fridjon and team will be there as well. And go and have a look out for not just the estates of Van Loveren and of De Wetshof. You've got Rietvallei and Excelsior and Weltevrede to go and look out for as well and get a sense of the wines that they make and why Chardonnay really is a treasure of Robertson. That does it for today. Look out tomorrow, a very special live show, 11 o'clock. We'll be coming to you from Elgin with the Kluwer team. We're launching the brand new Paul Kluwer 7 Flags with a number of guests. Greg Sherwood joins us from London in between his 4 free lunches of the day. We'll also have both the Kluwers, Dr. Paul and Paul, Emile Joubert, Fiona MacDonald, amongst our very special guests on the show from Elgin tomorrow. And then next week on Monday, live from the Dan Nicol Invitational, our charity golf day on what promises to be a cold and wet day, and so a great day for drinking wine. Good luck this weekend. And if you need some sustenance beyond the Calcrete or the other wine you're drinking, then have a crack at the new Avante brandy, John Smith's brandy. And if you buy some before the end of the month with Norman Goodfellows, you're going to a draw, and you could be hanging out online post-World Cup with myself, John, and some Avante brandy. You might need some of it this weekend. Big thank you to the Robertson team. We'll see you from Paul Kluwer tomorrow. Goodbye.